Hello, and welcome to another episode of B Movie Reviews. I am your host, Rich, and I have a great B movie for you today. Well, great might be an exaggeration, but it is a decent B movie in the least. And today I am reviewing The Toxic Avenger. Warning, there will be spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen the movie, I suggest you watch it first. So, The Toxic Avenger came out in 1986, roughly around that time. It's rated R, and the genre is a horror/comedy, and I can see why they put it in that genre. Definitely has some comedy to it. Horror, it's more gory than anything, but it definitely does deserve that rated R. So, let me go ahead and get a little into the movie, tell you a little bit what it's about. So, Tromaville has a monstrous new hero. The Toxic Avenger is born when weak mop boy Melvin falls into a vat of toxic waste. With his new transformation and powers, the Toxic Avenger will snuff out evil. The Toxic Avenger is a gore fest of spilled guts and not to mention a barrel of laughs. So the premise of this movie is that you have this nerdy guy named Melvin. He's a pussy. He works as a janitor at this health spa, and he's always made fun of. And this girl plays a really cruel trick on him, and he winds up getting really embarrassed, and he jumps through a window. And there just conveniently is a toxic waste transporting truck right below this window, and conveniently there are no lids on these barrels of toxic waste in the back of this truck for some reason. And he falls in there, and he winds up transforming into a monstrous, deformed, fugly, super strong superhero, right? And then he has not only is he like super strong and stuff like that and can rip people's arms off, but he has like this sixth sense about him. He can sense evil, and when it's around, and what it does is it drives him into this like murderous rage, and he has to find the evil and destroy it at all costs. So you see this in quite a few of the scenes where he's fighting some bad guys. And then, of course, this can't be a hero story if our hero doesn't have a love interest, which for some reason along the way he finds a blind girlfriend. So, it kind of all goes together because she would have to be blind in order to find this fugly bastard attractive or any type of appeal to him. This is an okay movie. It's not one of my favorite. It is a cult classic though. Right. There's a lot of people that like this movie. And I actually liked this movie when I was a kid a lot more than I do now. And I watched it last night. And, it kind of has lost some of its appeal to me since I was a kid. And, to be fair, this is a classic, kind of a classic B movie, in the sense that, it was a small budget film. It only had about a budget of $500,000, and it only grossed about $800,000 at the box office. So it didn't do really well, but, it is filled with like over the top characters and cheesy plot points. So it is a true B movie. And eventually they made this movie into a cartoon for kids, which you're probably thinking, if you've seen this movie, how could this ever have been? But, in the 90s, this wasn't uncommon. They did it with the Police Academy movies. They did it with this one. They did it with a few other ones like Ghostbusters. But, arguably Ghostbusters probably isn't, even though it has some adult themes in there, it's not as bad as this movie for sure. But, this was very common to take a more adult type movie or teen, people who are teenagers and older would watch a movie like this and understand it better than I did when I was like 5 or 6. You know, but they made a cartoon out of it. It was called the Toxic Crusaders. I guess it was okay for the most part. I watched it. I found it somewhere like 3-4 years ago, and I watched it. They only had one season because I think it ran from like maybe 91 to 92. So I was roughly about 9-10 years old when I saw it. And I didn't hate it when I saw the cartoon again, even as an adult. It wasn't really, it was better when I was a kid, obviously. Cartoons are usually better when you're kids, but it wasn't terrible. You know, I was able to get through it, and I found myself chuckling a few times, but it has lost a lot of appeal for me, though, this movie and the franchise in general. So let me get to some of the things I actually did like about this one. I'll talk about some of the things I didn't like, you know, here in a little bit. But one of the things I did definitely like, I think they do really well in the movie, is the gory fight scene. So whenever the Toxic Avenger is going to be fighting some guy or some group of guys, it's usually a group of guys he fights, you know that he's going to kick their butt, but he's going to do it in the most gruesome way possible, like ripping arms off or gouging some dude's eyes out or smashing in some guy's face or something like that, you know. But these scenes I actually found really entertaining because they were the only action sequences in the movie. And, you know, everything else in between those scenes was really boring. You know, whenever they had some action sequence, it was a lot more entertaining, of course, but all the other stuff that was in between that, it was really boring and stale. So, the movie really has lost, like I say, for me, has lost a lot since I was a kid to now. But one of the other things I liked too, I think they actually did really well considering it was a small budget movie, was this transformation of Melvin into the Toxic Avenger. I think they actually did this really well with the prosthetics and stuff that they had to use. You know, they show where his like skin is bubbling and bursting, and you know, he's all grotesque after being in the dumped into that vat of toxic waste, and he looks like somebody that would have been dumped in a vat of toxic waste. So I think they did this really well, and they actually had they were able to work some comedy into this scene where he's back at home because he goes headfirst into that toxic waste, right? And then he runs off and he's on fire, and he gets home and he gets in a tub to try and, I guess, wash this stuff off, and of course it doesn't work, and his mom is outside knocking on the door, like, and she's just like the most calm parent ever, right? She's like, "Are you okay? Is anything wrong? What's going on? Are you all right?" You know, and they just keep showing this over and over, her saying that, and while the whole time he's in there screaming in agony, like he's in severe pain. And then finally he transforms into the Toxic Avenger, and he lets out this really loud, deep roar. And they cut back to the mom, and she goes, "Oh, Melvin's finally gone through puberty." So I thought that was pretty funny. It was a pretty funny scene, you know, and it kind of added this comedy to this really grotesque transformation he was making. One of the other things that I liked is that they really did make you hate the bad guys in this movie. They did a really over the top job of making them psychopaths, you know, but it worked for the movie. So you have Bozo and Slug and their girlfriends Wanda and Julie, who are the antagonists of the movie, right? They're, if you want to say like the main characters, they're the main character, and the fat lard ass mayor is a main character as well. But Bozo and Slug have this game they like to play, the run over game, right? And they get these like points for running over certain people, either they're because they're of a certain ethnicity or race, or like a kid on a bicycle, right? And there's this really bad scene, right, where they show this kid and he's getting on his bike and his sister gives him a helmet. She says, all right, be careful, have fun, right? Really nice kid. He's having fun riding his bike. It's in the afternoon or at night, and he's just riding his bike, and here come these four assholes up in their car, right? And they're kind of at first like they pull up alongside him and they're waving at him. Hey, how you doing, little boy? And he waves back, and then they kind of taunt him a little and they drive off. And they're like, oh yeah, this is the one. So Bozo's like really excited over this, right? He's like over the top. His character really is over the top in a lot of these scenes. And he, whips around his car around, goes down the street a little, whips it around, comes back, and they just, run this kid down. And they see him fly over the hood of the car, and apparently it doesn't count if they're not dead. So they look back and say, oh, you don't get full points because he's not dead. And so Bozo goes berserk and he slams the car into reverse, and he initially goes back, and the scene they show is this kid looking like, oh shit, and he sees this back tire coming at him, and then his head pops like a watermelon all over the street. And the girls get out, and the girls really do enjoy this just as much as the guys. And I think they really did a good job portraying this because they're really hot, for when this movie came out, probably not so much now, but I think for everyone to like really hate, when I mean everyone, I mean guys to hate these chicks, they had to make it seem like these women were like these scum of the earth. Even though they were really hot, they were really terrible. So, they get out, they're taking pictures, they're all excited by me. Even I think her name's Wanda, later on, she's like masturbating to these photos. So it just shows you how real scummy these people are, but I think they do a really good job in this way. I don't like the fact that this kid got run over, this portrayal of this kid getting run over. I mean, that's pretty bad, but I think the movie does a good job in showing that these people are really scumbags. They're really psychos, that are unhinged. And pretty much every bad guy in this movie is a psychopath, but these four characters, these main antagonistic characters, are really over the top when it comes to the psychopath angle of being a bad guy. So let's get to some of the things I didn't like. I didn't really care for the ending in this movie. Now, granted, it is a B movie, and I'm not expecting a Oscar award-winning ending to the movie, but even this one was pretty bad. So this is where Toxie and oh God, what was her name? Sarah, his blind girlfriend. They go out to some place to go camping, right? And it's just this field, and there's a tent set up there. There's nothing else really, but the National Guard apparently was called in, and some of the townsfolk get together because they Toxic kills this like little woman, right? Well, come to find out that she's actually a really bad person, and there was a reason why Toxic killed her, but no one really knows that. So the mayor and the police chief, they are like, we got to keep this under wraps, because if it gets out, then he's really going to look like he's a hero. So they want him to look bad. So they get the National Guard out there, and they're there to kill him or capture him, and all of a sudden, like, these kids and some of the adults, they like stand in front of the soldiers and in front of their path to protect Toxie. And also like the crowd all changes and like they don't want to hurt the guy now, but the mayor still does. This fat lard ass mayor still does. So Toxie goes over there and he winds up, ripping the mayor's guts out in front of everybody, and these soldiers, the police officer that's there, rips his guts out and everyone cheers. So it's just a really kind of dumb ending to the movie, but it is a dumb movie, so what do you expect, right? One of the other things I didn't like about this movie too was the loop scenes. Now I know like cartoons are notorious for doing this, where they'll use a scene from one show and they'll work it back into other shows. But this movie does it quite a bit. Now it could be written that way, or it could be one of those things where they say we kind of did that on purpose to fit the genre of this movie of being a B movie. But it's really over the top with this one, especially it's really in scenes where Toxie is just, they're not really having any dialogue or anything. They just show him running or him standing and roaring at the city. And I mean, it's just, I don't know. It was a little over the top for me when it came to that. The looping of some of these scenes over and over. And then I really did only see it once, but I don't know why it bothered me so much, but they recasted some of the bad guys into like lesser roles, but the one in particular is the guy who has his face painted when he's one of the three robbers at the Mexican restaurant that I'll talk to here a little bit in my favorite scene area, but he's one of the robbers, right? And of course we all see what happens when he gets killed, but one of the next scenes later on, there's a group of guys that have Toxie surrounded, and it's that Cigar Face guy who's all bandaged up because Toxie didn't kill him. He just beat the hell out of him really bad. And they kind of go through showing all the guys' faces. And the taco guy, the Mexican restaurant guy with the painted face, he's there again. I'm like, what the hell? That guy just died. Like, I'm supposed to believe this is a different character. Again, it was probably maybe done that way to symbolize the kind of corniness of the movie. It just didn't work for me. I just saw that. I was kind of like, why was it necessary to recast this guy? Did he get a double paycheck or something for it? But I don't know. Okay, so let me go ahead and move on to my favorite scene. So my favorite scene, and of course, it was going to be an action scene. Right? No, it's the scene where Toxie's banging his smoking hot blind girlfriend. Yeah. No, it's the Mexican restaurant scene where the three guys go into the restaurant to rob it, and they wind up killing a guy, and then Toxie shows up and he just like brutalizes these guys in the worst way. The black guy there, he like rips his arm off, but he doesn't realize it for a few seconds. And then he does, and he starts screaming in pain, and he winds up in he's like the last one to get killed, but Toxie winds up throwing him into an oven like a pizza. And then the guy with the painted face, who got recast in another scene later on, he winds up making a like face milkshake out of him. So he like they show him like putting milk and ice cream and whipped cream and a cherry and hot syrup or hot fudge on the guy. And then he takes the milkshake mixer, which is like a blender, and he just rams his face into it. So it's like a really gruesome way to to kill this guy, but also comical, right? The other one, the other guy, he winds up like crimping his hands in a wire fry basket, and then he like pins him over the fryolator, and he just dunks his hands in there, and he just apparently passes out from shock or dies from pain or whatever. But he, they all wind up dying. But I don't know. I just thought it was a great scene. And this is where he meets his blind girlfriend, ultimately. And then, of course, they kill her poor dog, poor dog. And they even have a scene where the dog's just laying there and you see its guts hanging out. I'm like, oh, yeah. No, I don't think people who love animals could watch this movie, because that would probably be the most disturbing scene to them. I know it would be for my fiance. She would tell me I could deal with everything else but what they did to that dog. So weird. So I don't know. But it was actually a great action scene, and it was, it had a lot of comedy in it, with how he kind of killed these guys and stuff like that. So I just thought I thought it was great. That's why it's my favorite scene of the movie. But let me go ahead and just get on to my final thoughts and kind of overall rating of this movie. So the Toxic Avenger is definitely a splatterfest of violence and hilarious over-the-top characters. But with that being said, watching it the other day, I've realized that it's lost some of that shine it used to have when I was younger. And like I said, the only thing that is entertaining are those action scenes. Everything else is boring and dull, and I just was losing interest. And it was actually kind of hard for me to get through the movie last night because, it's part of that is because, it was kind of late, but also it's not very appealing to me anymore as it used to be when I was younger. So for those reasons, I'm giving the Toxic Avenger a 2 out of 5. It's okay. It's not total horse shit, but it's starting to smell like it. So it's an okay movie. But I just think that it's, for me, it's just lost a bit of its appeal. So, okay, guys. Well, that's going to do it for me for this episode. I just want to thank everyone for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of B Movie Reviews. Take care.